Hey, how's everybody doing on this Sunday afternoon? Sorry about being late. Had some conflicts and some things that we needed to get finished before I could do this. So today is not shaping up the way that I expected it to be. I can tell you that right now. I expected to see some movement already, and I expected to see some players sitting. But what I have found out over the last hour and a half, 2 hours, I think is going to be more telling as to why. We don't know everything yet. There's a lot to learn. But let's talk about some trade deadline action. I've got some information that I pulled together. I was hoping to get a lot more done today, but there is just too much going on to be able to pull it all together. So welcome in. Welcome to Rock Down Detroit Lions. I thank you guys. I see you jumping in. I thank you guys for jumping in. Let me pull out the chat this time and see if we can get that to work better. Give me just 1 second. So how's everybody doing watching these games today? Everything going the way you expected? Probably not. Washington beating the Eagles the last I checked. And that's very important. And I'll explain why in just a second. Pop out this chat so I can actually see it this time. Turn off the background. All right. Okay. All right. Welcome in, guys and ladies, whoever's watching today. Appreciate you joining Rock Down Detroit Lions. We're going to talk trade deadline information, some things that we've found. We've scanned the web, reached out to a few people today, and there's some interesting things that are going on and some things that I don't think we're going to like, simply because there's some players that some of us are hopeful are going to end up in Detroit come Tuesday. First and foremost, here are 10 things that I have found out about the trade deadline and some of the action and movement that's going on right now in the NFL and kind of what we can expect. Now, we know that these GMs like to hold everything close to the vest, and they'll tell us one thing and it's going to be something else. It always happens. There may not be as much movement as we expected this season, especially from the Detroit Lions. I'm hoping that Brad Holmes is really holding things close to the vest, because as I'm thinking right now, based on what I've read, we would be lucky to get one player on Tuesday or by Tuesday. And I hope that that's not true. But here are 10 things. Number one, the Broncos are not open to trading cornerback Patrick Surtain. In fact, one team source described him as the best and the smartest player on the Broncos roster. Denver's listening to offers on other players like receiver Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton and even linebacker Josie Jewell. But no offer has come close to motivating their general manager, George Patton, to make a move. And matter of fact, the Broncos aren't selling cheaply is what's being heard, and that is a direct quote. Number two, the Eagles want to make another move even after adding safety and five-time Titans captain Kevin Byard. This report says they expect Howie Roseman to be very busy on Monday morning. He's poking around at linebacker. And there's a few linebackers that are up on the trade block at this point. As I just mentioned, one of them, Josie Jewell. The Ravens are looking to add a running back. The Cleveland Browns are looking to add a receiver, and the Buffalo Bills are scanning the cornerback market. A lot of this information is coming by way of different websites and insiders that I follow. The Washington Commanders are listening to offers on Chase Young and Montez Sweat. They want a second-round grade. So first question for everybody today. Would you be willing to give up a 2024 second-round pick for either one of them, knowing they would still need a new contract? And I'll get back to that in a minute and give you my take on what I think. Do me a favor, if you guys are in, everything seems to be coming across okay, jump in the chat, say hi. You can even let us know where you're watching from today. What state are you in? I'm in Michigan, of course. All right, so Washington wants a second-round grade or a second-round pick for either Montez Sweat or Chase Young. The Las Vegas Raiders, wide receiver Devontae Adams, and New York Giants running back Saquon Barkley are not getting moved by their teams. So at this point, they're shelved. They're not even taking offers. Both teams do have quite a few interested parties. Carolina Panthers. This is a big one. Carolina Panthers are not actively shopping Brian Burns. They are planning on keeping him. So if you were hoping to have Brian Burns join the Detroit Lions, it does not look like it's happening at this time. If you remember last year, the Rams offered, I believe it was 2 first-round picks for Burns, and the Panthers walked away from that deal. And I think that the Panthers know now that they're not going to get anything close to that for Brian Burns. That could be the reason why they've tabled talks and they're not willing to move him. Another big name, 2 big names, DeAndre Hopkins and Derrick Henry look to be staying in Tennessee. Let me jump into the chat here. All right, David Petrak. I hope I didn't butcher your name, buddy. Says he's from Cleveland, Ohio. Lone Wolf says, what's up? Hey, Lone Wolf. Nice to see you in. And he's from Ohio. You guys both Bucks fans over there, what? James Dark says Gladwin, Michigan. Hey, how's the deer this season up there? Gladwin's got plenty of deer. Good place to go. And Mike P says he's not surprised by Denver's GM, and yes, the Washington deal for either one. So Mike P, you'd be willing to give up a number 2 pick or 2nd round pick for Montez or Chase Young. And I'll come back to that in just a minute here. I want to get through a couple of things, and I'm going to kind of give you my opinion on why I would or wouldn't make that deal. Brent DeWitt said 2nd round pick for a position of immediate need would be fine by me. Twin Lake, Michigan here. Awesome. Up in Twin Lakes. So, and I'm going to come back to this. Mike P also says, never thought that the Panthers would move Burns. See, and I thought that they might have if they would have gotten the right amount of draft capital. And David Petrak wanted to confirm that he is not a Bucks fan. No, go blue. All right. I can't say go blue personally, but I'll leave it at that. But he really doesn't follow the NC2A. That's all right. All right. So where was I at? Number 6, DeAndre Hopkins and Derrick Henry are look to be staying in Tennessee. There's been plenty of teams that have called Rand Carthone on a number of players. And per this report, Carthone is not moving on any offer unless it's exceptional. A source with the Cowboys also shared they have called about acquiring about Henry. So the Cowboys are looking to add a running back. Number 7, the Chiefs, the Bengals, the Rams, the Falcons, and the Texans appear to be standing pat based on multiple conversations around the league. So if you're interested in any players from any of those teams at this point, nothing's happening. The 49ers are looking to add a few pieces like an edge rusher and a cornerback. 49ers got a good squad, man. Even though Purdy got exposed the other day, they got a good squad. If they had another good piece, it's going to be tough for the Lions. So the 49ers are working the phones. They are very active. Number 9, the Jets aren't getting many calls on Carl Lawson or Delvin Cook. That's a surprising one on Delvin Cook. Number 10, Arizona Cardinals. They do want to keep Marquise Brown to be part of their future, despite getting many calls from interested teams. Right now, it's expected he's going to stay in town in Arizona. All right, so first up for me is I want to talk about Washington. Go figure, right? It does appear that Chase Young and or Montez Sweat or both, their days are numbered in Washington. Jordan Schultz of Bleacher Report reported that. I'll get back to that in just a second there in the chat. I just seen that. Nice. Jordan Schultz of Bleacher Report reported that the Washington Commanders are actively initiating trade talks now. The reason why this is important, because they're no longer listening, right? They're not receiving the calls. They're shopping. When you initiate calls, I've been in sales or I was in sales for 20 plus years of my life. when you're actively hunting, right, there's two ways to do it. If you're hunting to find a buyer, that's one thing. If you are trying to move something and you're making calls, you don't have any leverage. So right now, and Jerry Jones even mimicked the same sentiment. He said that right now, the Washington Commanders are losing leverage. Washington wants a second round pick. And look, the caveat to Washington Commanders' decision on whether or not that they're going to proceed with trading either of these players or pursuing or pushing for the playoffs is expected to be heavily influenced by today's game. Matter of fact, I'm wondering what the score is now, but the last I looked, Washington was winning. It was only by 7. But if I'm reading and understanding this correctly, tie ball game, 8 minutes, 42 seconds left. If I'm understanding this correctly, if Washington wins this game, they might hold on to everybody, which means then the Lions are out. If they're still in, then they're out of bringing either one of these guys in. All right, let me jump over to the chat. Lone Wolf, I already got to you. Greg Warner says Fort Wayne, Indiana, formerly from the Saginaw area. Welcome in, Greg. Brent DeWitt said Allen from the Redskins. I'll get to that in just a moment here. I promise you. James Dark says, a buddy of mine got a monster buck this year. A nice pointer anyways. Hey, a nice 8-pointer. That's a big buck. I guess depending on the size, but Lone Wolf says, I think if I were the Lions, I won't trade my second round pick. Brad Holmes loves draft picks. He does, but here's something. Let's look at the second round picks that we've had in recent seasons. And what are they doing for us right now? Levi Onwuzurike and Josh Pascal. Can't stay healthy, not playing. Haven't done much for us. So if you're kind of doomed on the second round pick, do you really want to keep it for 2024? Because so far your second round pick hasn't hit. But plenty of 4th, 5th, and 6th round picks have hit. It's easier to get later round draft capital. And then he says, Brent DeWitt says, I'm thinking you're right, Lone Wolf. And I think that's in response to saying that Brad Holmes loves draft picks. All right, so if we're reading this correctly, if Washington wins today, they are probably going to stand down unless it's some crazy deal, right, for Montez Sweat or Chase Young. But a loss against their division rival today would mean that the Commanders are most likely not going to push for a playoff spot, and they would look to unload as soon as Monday morning. Washington is not expected to be able to retain both pass rushers, and this is what's interesting. And at least one team already has inquired about Sweat, according to these sources. And the Commanders are proceeding patiently, right? They're waiting to see whether their season is going to go as well as they had hoped or not, which obviously ends today. So before losing Young or Sweat in free agency, Washington first could decide to trade one to maximize their compensation, right, in 2024. Instead of getting a compensatory pick in the 2025 NFL draft. So that's their options, right? You trade them now, you get a second, maybe a third, or a third, maybe a second, or you'll most likely get a third round compensatory pick in 2025. Makes sense. Here's the bad news. The Commanders have also received tons of inquiries or tons of calls. When I say tons, it most likely means a few. On Jonathan Allen. After his post-game eruption last week and the loss to the New York Giants, he wasn't happy. But Washington said it's not willing to deal Allen. And they wouldn't even have the conversation with other teams. That's news because in the last show that I did on this, we were told that their GM, can't remember his name right now, Washington's GM, picked up the phone and called somebody, notably the Detroit Lions. So I'm going to have to question that source. Other players are, also in the last year of their contract. that Washington, may get aggressive to deal in the next 24 to 48 hours could include Jacoby Brissett, Antonio Gibson, and Curtis Samuel, even linebacker Cody Barton. And, of course, cornerback Kendall Fuller. So we know at least one cornerback and one defensive end is available by Washington if they lose this game. All right, let's talk Montez Sweat. Look, I'm not happy that Allen won't be dealt. I would love to see him in the Honolulu Blue next to Aiden Hutchinson all day, every day, and 6 times on Sunday. Sweat, he's an interesting option. I think he's better than anything we have right now other than Aiden Hutchinson. So I think he's a very good complementary piece to this defensive line. He will be a free agent next season, and so will Chase Young. He's definitely on the trade block as long as Washington loses today. He's already put up 34 and a half sacks in 66 career games. So he's pretty much getting a sack every other game. I like that production. I mean, that's almost 10 a season. That's damn good production. But it's going to come at a price. A second round pick is what they're asking. And they're probably going to end up with a third. Unless Brad Holmes makes him sweat it out. Somehow we move on from like a fourth and a fifth, which I that would be a dream scenario. Here's my thought. And per league sources, there are rumors now that the Bears are all over Chase Young. I want to say Brad Holmes is a very intelligent man. And if he's looking for a defensive end, do you let the Bears even have an opportunity? Or do you go in and snake them? Do what you have to do so that your team doesn't have to go up against Chase Young. The Bears have significant cap space in 2024. And they want to bring in Young and give him a new contract. They have a lot of cap space and they have a lot of draft capital. I'll throw this out there. Justin Fields has been down for a couple of weeks, I believe, with a thumb injury. Is it a potential that Justin Fields is on the trade block? And the reason why I say that is when you look at the draft capital that the Bears have, and you look how much money they have right now, I could see them really wanting to get one of the quarterbacks in next year's draft because it's a loaded draft for quarterbacks, unlike it was this season. This season wasn't the greatest for quarterbacks, but there's going to be plenty coming out in 2024. I could see it happening. I could see another team wanting to take a shot on Fields just because of his ability to run. Anyway, the Bears are buyers right now. They're looking for some defensive end help. I mean, their season's in the gutter. So, I mean, the fact that they're even looking to get better, by the trade deadline is it's kind of odd because normally at the trade deadline, you're looking to make your team better to make a playoff push. Bears aren't even close to that. But if they're looking to make their team better for next season, bringing in somebody like Chase Young, you already know what you're going to get. If you were to, take a similar player in the early second round or late first round, you don't know what you're going to get, right? It takes a little bit of time in most cases for those players to develop. Here's another interesting one, and I don't know if we're going to have any, interdivisional trades. The Lions have pulled some off with Hawkinson last year. But would you be interested in the Lions taking Daniel Hunter from the Vikings? All right, let me jump back in the chat here. For some reason, it was stuck. All right, Eagles are up 31-24, so that means that Washington is a seller right now. So every time the score changes, they're going to be, selling or standing down, right? Sweat would be a great pickup, and maybe get Sue. He would be cheap, and then find a corner. Yeah, I hear you there. Look, I'm on board with Sue. Only because you're bringing back a familiar face. You're bringing back somebody that was adored by Detroit Lions fans, whether he was an idiot on the field or not. James Dark says, if Washington wins, do you think we will trade with a different team or no trade at all? That's an interesting question. So we have Daniel Hunter available from the Vikings. Hunter keeps racking up sacks as a specialist, getting to the quarterback. He can still build on his game as a young veteran to be more complete, right? He's still younger than 30. He is pretty expensive for a rebuilding team, which makes me think may not be a viable option for the Lions. But he could immediately boost any team, that he joins. Lone Wolf says Washington GM Martin Mayhew, Lions old GM. Is it really? You know what? I guess I knew that. For some reason, I thought it was somebody else. All right, Allen across from Hutch would make our secondary look a lot better. That's for sure. That's from Brent DeWitt. That's a good take. And look, whether you have Allen or, any one of these defensive ends, your DBs are going to get better. And the reason why they're going to get better is because you're going to get to the quarterback a lot faster. Look, more than 3 seconds in the NFL is a lifetime. And I'll repeat what I said the other day. When the Ravens gave Jackson 9.24 seconds in the pocket, he did move with his legs a little bit to free up some time. Or I should say the Lions gave him 9.24 seconds to throw the ball. That's way too long. That's 3 times the normal amount in the NFL. You have to get to the quarterback in under 3 seconds. If you don't, it's hard for the cornerbacks and or the safeties to stay sticky. All right, Tony David said, send Charles Harris with that second round pick. I like where your head's at there, but then we have to bring 2 people in. 2. Got to remember that. So if we can get Kendall Fuller and trade Charles Harris, no, I'm sorry. You said Charles Harris, not Will Harris. Yes, I got you there. And I agree with that. So if we were to swap Charles Harris and a second round pick, I wouldn't be mad. I believe Charles Harris was a healthy scratch last week, and that could have been for good reason. They're probably trying to move him. Kirk Cousins is down. Is that still the case? I got the game on, but I really can't see it with where I'm sitting right now. I don't think the Vikings are going to deal with the Lions for Hunter. And I get that, look, sometimes you don't have the same reciprocation. If the Lions and the Vikings, they did a deal last year, doesn't mean that the Vikings are going to be willing to do the same for the Lions. Look, Brad Holmes has a ton of good relationships within the NFL. He's regarded as one of the nicest, one of the best, clean cut, does things the right way. Brad Holmes is loved within the NFL. So those relationships go a long way. Look, the NFL is a business at the end of the day. It's all about business decisions. And if both teams can benefit, look, they just got to find a way to defend each other, defeat each other the next time. I don't think it matters much. We'll see. All right, Bears and Packers are done. It's over? Man, you must be 5 minutes ahead of me. That's crazy. Who won? All right, so moving forward. So we've got Chase Young, Montez Sweat, Jonathan Allen's off the board. You got Daniel Hunter from the Vikings. I think that those are your best 3 options right now. I can't think of anyone else that you're going to add to this Lions team that could really make an immediate impact. And part of that is what I'm going to go into next. But this next guy, if this is true, I would take him all day long. I just don't know how big his contract is. And I can pull it up. Matter of fact, let me pull it up before I even say his name. I'm sure it's a big one. And that's what could limit the ability of getting him in the house. Let's see what we got. Yeah, it's a big one. It may not be as bad, though, as what I'm seeing. All right, so there have been some rumblings, and I love this option. I just don't know how viable it is. Cleveland general manager Andrew Berry is on the lookout for a long-term partner for defensive end Myles Garrett, and that Chase Young could be pursued at the trade deadline. They're trying to swap. Now, I wouldn't see Washington making the trade 1-for-1 and some draft capital either direction. I don't see that happening. But I would love to see Myles Garrett in the Honolulu Blue. I mean, come on, it doesn't get much better than that. And when I look at his contract, it doesn't look as scary as what I thought it would be, because he has 1, 2, 3, 4. He has 5 void years on his contract. The crappy thing about that, and contracts are so difficult to understand some days, but those 5 void years would automatically get transferred to 2023 if the Browns trade him. But that would be the Browns' responsibility, because that was other bonus money. And correct me if I'm wrong, but any prorated bonus and any other bonus would be attributed to 2023 if they're traded, responsible of the trading team. The only thing that the acquiring team would be responsible for is the base salary, and that's it. And they might be responsible for this other bonus. So if I'm looking at it correctly, that means that Myles Garrett's only going to make about $5 million in 2024, about $10 million in 2025, and about $15 million in 2026. And then he has about $12 million in a other bonus void year, 27, 28, another $8.5 million in 29, and another $4.7 million in 2030, and then nothing in 2031. Very interesting contract. All right, tell me your thoughts on Myles Garrett. You want to see this guy in the Honolulu Blue or what? Because I think that it would be incredible. Oh, okay. I thought you were saying that the game was done. You're saying their season. Yeah, they're not doing so hot. Look, the Lions are at the top of this NFC North, and there is not one team in our division that we should really be worried about. And it doesn't mean that any given Sunday something can't happen, but for the foreseeable future, I don't see the Lions having difficulty winning the division for at least the next 2 to 3 seasons. All of those teams are going to be going through rebuilds. All right, so Myles Garrett to the Honolulu Blue. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you like it? Would you do it? What would you give up for it? The thing that I don't know is I don't know what the Browns are looking for. I mean, that is a monster contract. I mean, to me, it doesn't look that bad, but that contract is so convoluted, I don't even know how to decipher it. It would take somebody much more smarter than me to know how that contract really going to boil down. The Denver Broncos, they do remain open to listening to offers. There is not going to be a fire sale in Denver, but there are a few players that the Lions could bring in that we definitely could use. The Raiders have shown no indication that they're open to listening to offers for Devontae Adams or Max Crosby, but Hunter Renfrow is available. As I said earlier, defensive end Carl Lawson and running back Delvin Cook could be available for the right price. So there's another defensive end. You've got Carl Lawson, Myles Garrett, Montez Sweat, and Chase Young. All good options. And without knowing all of their details as far as contract, which we're going to do some of that today, we're going to pull it up. So we know that Myles Garrett has a long-term contract. To me, that makes a lot of sense. And in what I was going to say earlier to answer someone's question about Jonathan Allen and why I like that deal is because if you're going to give up a second round pick for a guy like Allen, who's an immediate upgrade, number one. Number two, contract is manageable and he's signed through at least 2025. That means that in 2024, you don't immediately have to either sign the guy or sign the guy now. For some of these guys like Montez Sweat and Chase Young, they don't have a contract post this season. Now, I believe that the trading team could franchise tag them. It's expensive, probably talking 12, 13 million a season, but I think a new contract is probably going to be more. So what I'm saying here is this. If you bring in somebody, and I know Allen's not on the block, but we'll use Myles Garrett. So if you give a second round pick up for Myles Garrett, you don't have to worry about bringing somebody in 2024 through the draft. You have Garrett locked down for many years, right? As opposed to Montez Sweat and Chase Young, where you either have to sign them, you give up a second round pick, you still have to sign them and give them big money, and then you don't have a pick for 2024. So you're losing both with Montez Sweat and Chase Young. Contract, draft pick. Myles Garrett, proven player, already has a contract. It's manageable. It's big, but it's manageable because of all the void years and everything else going on. The Lions can work out a whole new deal with Myles Garrett and make it fit whatever they need to fit because he's already got a crazy contract. When I look at the cap number, that's what matters to me. The cap percent. So even in 2024, they're expecting that Myles Garrett's cap number is 6.9%. As where, your quarterback, Jared Goff, is sitting somewhere around 12.8% this year. And when he gets extended, his cap number will probably be around 13.5%. So, yes, I said that, when he gets extended. All right, let me jump back into the chat here. All right, Brent DeWitt said Myles Garrett would be great, but I don't see the Browns moving the anchor of their defense. I wouldn't have thought so either until I read this report. And this is, this is the insider analysis. These are all the quotes and everything that's been shared by the insiders around the league. Namely, one individual is Diana Rossini, Adam Schefter, the guy from Bleacher Report, Schultz. So there's quite a few names that have done the research, and that's where I've gotten a lot of my research today. Ken Crittenden says he loves it. Yeah, I'd love to see Myles Garrett in the Honolulu Blue. We know what we're going to get right away. So anyway, looking at Garrett's contract versus, other players that are available. Let's look at Carl Lawson real quick. Let's see what he's offering. Carl Lawson. He's under contract through 2023. And he has 4 void years too. So there's another guy that you're going to have to sign right away. He's 28 years old. His cap number this year, he's only in the 1.3% range, 2.4% range. He's making roughly $9.5 million a year, $10 million a year. So he's going to want a new contract in that $13, $14, $15 million range, most likely. This is going to be the last opportunity for him to get a max contract. And then you already know that Chase Young and Montez Sweat are going to want good deals. They're right along the same lines as Carl Lawson. All right. What do you guys got to say on that? If you had a choice, who do you want? What round draft pick would you give up? Nick P says Daniel Hunter could be on his way to Detroit. Cousins tore his Achilles, and that will end. Ooh, boy. That's big news. You heard it live on Rock Down Detroit Lions, thanks to Nick P. And a couple of the other guys in here that said that Cousins was down. East Side something. East Side Wood 29. Look, the Lions could be players. Minnesota could have a fire sale come tonight. Who is their backup quarterback? I don't even know who their backup is. All right. Nick P says he'd rather have Jonathan Allen. Nick, I don't know if you were in, and I like Jonathan Allen too. I like it for a couple of reasons. I mean, I wouldn't be mad at either, but Jonathan Allen's deal is obviously a little bit more manageable. Couple less years, I believe, than Myles Garrett. But according to Washington, Jonathan Allen is not going to be moved. They're not even going to take offers now. They are willing to move on from Montez Sweat and Chase Young, but that's only if they lose today. If they don't lose, things could change. All right, no new updates. Looked like the Eagles just went up by a touchdown. Come on, Eagles. This is the only time I'm ever going to say it. Fly, Eagles, fly. We need you to win. Nick P says, I'm a surgeon, and they can figure out Achilles tear easily. They ruled him out extremely quickly. I'm not laughing if you are, if you aren't. It's great. I think it's funny. Here's a good question. So I've seen this one fly around a little bit too, and I mentioned it the other day. Could Detroit trade Bridgewater to the Vikings? So Bridgewater going back to where, didn't the Vikings draft him? Or was he traded to the Vikings back in the day? Isn't that where he had his major leg injury, was with the Vikings? That would be interesting to see him go back to where he kind of came from. I don't know. Look, if they're going to do right by Hendon Hooker and they're actually going to activate him if he's ready to go, then maybe there's a case to be made. You know, maybe the Lions pick somebody else up. But then again, given the way that the Lions season is going, I don't know if you want to move on from Bridgewater because he's been in the offense all season. He's a good quarterback. He's got mobile feet. And I don't know if I'd want to move on from him. I don't think I'd want to take that shot because if for some reason Goff goes down for a couple of games, you need that true Bridgewater bridge quarterback to get you through. And I think if anybody could do it, it would be him. He's the best backup we've had in Detroit in many years. We just haven't seen anything from him. So I hope we get a blowout, you know, in one of these games where we can see Bridgewater come in like the fourth quarter and have some fun. Eric Anderson says we have to sign Goff, Sewell, and Jackson for next year, so limit your money. I agree with that. And that's part of another show that I'm going to do too. After the trade deadline stuff, we'll start looking at probably during the bye week because we don't have anything to cover during the bye week other than hopefully someone that we picked up in the trade deadline. But I would like to do a show on expiring contracts and kind of look at where the Lions are set up for the next season. It's a little early to start talking about the draft. But hey, if you love football like I do, why not? We can have a conversation about it. And for me, the Lions are in good shape. They've got, I think, 39 players now signed for 2024. And that's the most I've seen them have in a long time. I think to start this season, I think they are at 29. That's a big difference. So when you have roughly 70 million in cap space next season is what the Lions should have, roughly 70. 39 guys signed. That means that the next top 12 contracts on your team will round out the top 51. So you sign 7 guys, 6 guys, 5 guys, whatever it is from the draft next year. They've only got, 5, 6, 7 slots to fill to get to their top 51. The Lions could end up with, the draft will cost you 18 million, call it 20. The Lions could end up with close to 50 million in cap space. And that's the numbers that we have to look at when you're talking about trade deadline. So in the trade deadline, you have to, look at the future. What are we going to have for money? What are we going to have for cap space? Does it make sense to bring in somebody like a Myles Garrett, a Chase Young, a Montez Sweat that is going to cost you 15, 20 million or 15 million probably per season? And then, yes, we're going to have to extend Goff more than likely. And when you look at those numbers, and if they get really unique with these contracts, You can put a ton of void years in it and make it cheap up front. You can really go hard for a few seasons by doing that. Obviously, the player has to be willing to do that. And if I'm gathering a sense of the room, so to speak, from the type of players that Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell are bringing in, if they are truly all about the team and wanting to win in Detroit, they're not going to care how slowly their money gets to them. They know they're going to get it. They would be willing to sacrifice getting more money up front, less money throughout the season for a couple extra years. That's what I hope Brad Holmes is building right now, is that type of mentality. I mean, let's call it for what it is. It's the Bill Belichick mentality. Yeah, we do got phone lines open. I don't have it open just yet, Lion Syndicate. I'll get you on in just a minute if you'd like to pop in. I'd appreciate it. All right, let me back up here. Trevor says, interesting thought, Vincent. And could Detroit trade for Bridgewater to the Vikings? So, I mean, the Viking season's done, right? They're probably going to limp through the rest of the season with whoever they have. They're not in contention for anything. I think they just open the doors, though, on player availability. This is brutal for the Vikings. Never want to see that. Yeah, it sucks to see anybody go down, especially with an Achilles, because they're done for a year. It's just, that's terrible. Who knows how much longer Kirk Cousins is going to play? He's been in the league a long time. All right, Nick P says he'd rather have Chase Young over Sweat. Young's pass rush win rate is at 26% to like 8% for Sweat. It's a big difference. And thanks for the stat, Nick. I appreciate it. James Dark says, not related to trade deadline, but amon-ra St. Brown is now questionable for tomorrow with illness. Yeah, there's been a few players that have been catching this flu or whatever's going on, which is terrible. It's hitting the league everywhere. There's quite a few of them that had injury reports today. And to follow up on injury reports, I was really hoping, like I said during the week, I was really hoping to see more action on the injury reports today than I did. But it makes sense now. Like I said earlier, Washington was not going to move on from anybody unless they lost this game today. So it makes sense now why those guys are in the game. If they win this game, they're going to keep trying to win. And they might have even been buyers at the trade deadline if they have the cap to do it. All right. D. Johnson says, what's up, Derek? Yeah, what's up, Derek? What's up? I see you. I'll have you on in just a minute. Amon-Ra going to play tomorrow? I hope so. We need him. But that's another reason why the Lions need to find another wide receiver. They have to. I don't trust, I know you guys aren't going to like this. I do not trust Jameson Williams right now, and I can't imagine how many other people do either. He hasn't shown us enough. He hasn't shown us the ability to do things when it matters. How could we trust him in a big game right now? This is just regular season. We're not even talking playoffs yet. And if you can't trust him in the regular season, how are you going to be able to trust him in the playoffs? Now, I know it's half a season away. There's plenty of time for him to get it together, and he could. I hope he does. But that's why I think it makes sense for the Lions to bring in somebody else. You're darn right there, D. It's our division to take. Oh. Nick P says Cousins' calf was reverberating as his leg hit the ground. Yeah, that's definitely a tear. Just like what you saw with Rodgers. I thankfully have never had an Achilles tear or rupture or anything like that. My son has. He had a rupture, so he didn't need surgery. Or not a rupture. He had a strain. He never needed surgery. Source for Garrett and Link. Here you go, Nick. Give me just a second. One second. I might have to find it for you at the end, but I want to say it was Diana Rossini. Well, maybe if I'm smart, I just go to my recently closed tabs. One second, everybody. Hold on a sec. All right, I'll come back to that in just a second. I think I got it. What I'll do is as soon as I get it, I will post it in the comments. And then you'll have it. Just give me just a second. All right, so I'm going to move on to a couple other things here. I will come back to this in just a moment. Well, you can look up Diana Rossini to start with if you like. So the Panthers, like I said earlier, they've shown no inclination to listen to inquiries on edge rusher Brian Burns or defensive end or defensive lineman Derek Brown. Look, I'd love to see like somebody like a Derek Brown. That would be incredible. But unfortunately, Panthers aren't moving on. Even though they've had a terrible season, they're looking at those guys to be building blocks. I mean, you'd have to really give them something big. The Titans appear to be standing down. No interest in taking offers on Derrick Henry or DeAndre Hopkins. Again, this is per Diana Rossini. I made sure I put a note into this one. The Chiefs, the Bengals, the Rams, the Falcons, and the Texans appear to be standing pat based on multiple conversations around the league. She was told that the Jets aren't getting many calls on Carl Lawson or Dalvin Cook. We heard that earlier. We will see if that changes after today's games. Don't you tell me that Washington just scored a touchdown. All right. Myles Garrett. What's your question on Myles Garrett? Nick, what's your question? All right. Eric Anderson says, thanks for the input on the cap space. Spot on. Maybe Vaitai gone and we draft the right guard. I don't want to trade quarterback to Minnesota. We have to play them too. JMO will do good. Just have to scheme up plays like Bama did. My only issue on the JMO front is, look, if you're a first round pick, number 12 overall, you got to be able to blend to the scheme. He's got to be able to catch the ball. That's just, I mean, it's just simple 101. Receiver 101. Just catch the ball if he hits you in the mitts. I hope that he'll get there. You know, time will tell. I mean, he needs some more time, but time will tell. So I see we've got about 130 people in watching this live today. I can't thank you all enough, so I'm going to say it right now. This channel is 100% supported and sponsored by all of you that are watching right now. And Rocktown Detroit Lions can't thank you enough. We really appreciate you all. Do yourself and us a favor. Look below. If you haven't subscribed yet, we'd love to have you aboard. We're new. We're doing some great things over here. We've teamed up with a few people in the space. And we're going to be bringing you guys all sorts of good stuff throughout the season. We're going to go 365 days a year. And we hope to be bringing some more partners and more podcasts and some other things to the space. And look, our goal is to really bring the truth, transparency, and honesty in everything that we do. We want to be different. But at the same time, you will get some of the same stuff from us like everybody else does, just because that's just the way it goes. But we love to have you all in. We appreciate it. And can't thank you enough. Let me jump back and see if I can find you that link one more time here. All right, so the next one that I'm going to get to, or the next section here, is I think I want to talk about some receivers. I do believe, since we're on the JMO talk a little bit, I do believe that the Lions need another wide receiver. And there's been a couple of people talking about DJ Shark from the Panthers. And here's my take on DJ Chark. one, I had no idea what his contract is. I know he wanted like 10 million or something crazy from the Lions, or more than 10 million. And if that's the case, no, I don't want to bring him back. If the Panthers are willing to eat up some of his contract and we give up, a 5th, 6th round pick or something like that, then possibly. The thing that I do like is he knows the system. And when you know the system, it's a lot easier to blend. And he did a wonderful job last season, towards the later half of the season, at performing well within the scheme, number one. And number two, he was able to open up Amon-Ra St. Brown quite a bit. A lot of teams started to scheme towards him. And when you do that and you're able to lead defenders away, I mean, you can imagine now with Laporta, St. Brown, you got Josh Reynolds who's having a good season. You've got Gibbs coming out of the back. I think it would be a decent fit. It just has to be the right number. So I guess to answer the question about DJ Chark, number one, I would do it. It just has to be the right number. And it has to be late draft capital. Give me just a second. I'll be right back. 2 seconds. It's cold in the studio today. 1 year, 5 million, says Lion Syndicate. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm going to open up to phone lines in about 5 minutes. I do want to find, maybe that'd be a good idea. Why don't I bring someone in now? And that way I can find this link. I know it's here. So I'm going to put the number in the chat. And if you want to call in, talk about the Lions, talk about the trade deadline, that would be great. Give us your take on the season. Whatever you'd like to talk about as far as the Lions and trade deadlines, cool with me. And we'll have some fun with it. All right. Numbers in the chat right now. And the way this is going to work is when someone calls, I'm going to have to put it on mute. I'm going to bring them in, make sure we're not getting a big spam call or something like that. And we'll bring in one at a time. Right now it's going through my phone. Eventually we'll have multi-line system. So lines are open, 313-312-0348. Eagles win. That is awesome. That means that Washington are for sure sellers, according to the sources. Doesn't mean a deal's going to get done, but they are sellers. So as far as receivers go, for me, look, I like Hunter Renfrow. I'm not saying he's the best option. I do like him. I think he would be a viable option. He works a lot more out of the slot than he does on the outside. But, I mean, he's a former All-Pro or a former Pro Bowler. He was on the trading block during the offseason, so that to me leads more towards Oakland or Las Vegas wanting to do it again. Things really haven't died down, with Renfrow, playing a smaller role. Recent indications are that the Raiders are having a hard time finding a trade partner for him. But Vegas, might be willing to settle for a late round pick. Look, if you can bring in Renfrow for a 6th round pick, would you do it? I think I would. The thing I don't like is he's not really another guy that's going to take the top off. He's more of a slot guy. But, he's like another Amon-Ra St. Brown. I don't think he's anywhere close to the skill of Amon-Ra St. Brown, but he's that kind of a player. All right, Hendon Hooker trade rumors. Grant Farragut, and I apologize, I'm a little bit behind on the chat. I was looking for that link. So, Grant, look, I don't think it's going to happen. I think that would be kind of silly. I don't think you waste a 3rd round pick and get rid of your guy who hasn't even touched the field yet. I don't think that any team would want to take him either. Not right now. And I don't think the Lions would do it. Cortland Sutton. Terry Watt says we don't need Cortland Sutton. I'm kind of on the Sutton train if it's the right deal too, though. Again, we're talking about receivers in that right now. Mike Evans is on the trading block potentially. Cortland Sutton is definitely on the trading block. But Denver Broncos, like they said, there's no fire sale in Denver. It has to be the right compensation. Trevor Taylor says Brad threw the kitchen sink at the secondary and it still didn't work due to injuries. I really would like to see a proven cornerback. I think we all would. Who's your favorite cornerback? All right. Marquise Brown, wide receiver for the Cardinals, is another one of my favorites. Good work, Lions Syndicate, for getting us updated. 27-34. So sounds like Washington won. And too many O-line injuries to trade Big V right now. So, Wilson, the biggest issue with Big V is he's hurt. He's got this back injury. It keeps creeping up. And when this back injury keeps creeping up every other week, he can't hit the field. And so we'll wind back here to talk about the injury report. Right now, the middle of our offensive line is tore up. The bookends are good, right? You've got Taylor Decker and Penei Sewell. They're solid for tomorrow's game. But Frank Ragnow may be out. Vaitai may be out. Jonah Jackson is already ruled out. So if you miss Frank Ragnow, Jonah Jackson, and Vaitai, that means Graham Glasgow is going to have to slide in at center. Then you've got Coyote Awosika, Colby Sorsdahl, and Dan Skipper as our next 3 options to fill in. That's not making me very comfortable. Especially when you don't have somebody like a Montgomery. We have Jahmyr Gibbs, who's largely an outside zone type of running back. Oh, hey, thanks, Wilson. You're following right up on that. Appreciate it. So Jonah and Ragnow doubtful this week. Jonah out, Ragnow doubtful. Washington lost, Eagles win. Tom McGraw says, I'll do it for Sweat or Young. And he followed up with, Wilson said, if Brad makes a trade, I bet it will be someone that none of us had on our radars. Isn't that how it usually goes with Brad Holmes, though? Of course, I will say this. Back when I did the pre-draft show to this season, and I wrote some articles on rockedonpodcastnetwork.com, and I haven't been writing. I just haven't had enough time, and I haven't found anybody that wants to write. If you guys all want to write, you want to write some 500-word blogs, and if you know WordPress at all, we're looking for writers. It doesn't cost you anything. We take care of it all. And you can become writers, talk about your team, put your opinions out there. You can always email us, info@rockedonpodcastnetwork.com. You can always call us at 313-312-0348. Leave us a message if we miss you. But we're looking for writers. We're looking for people. We'd love to have you in. Packers loss. Still 2 games up of the Vikings. Yeah, I don't think the Lions are going to have to worry about this division. I really don't. All right, Nick P says Teddy Bridgewater and a 5th or a 6th for Daniel Hunter. Maybe help Minnesota save their season somewhat. Hunter with another sack today. Look, Nick, I'm not trying to help the Vikings. I hear you, though. I don't think Bridgewater is going to be, captain, save a quarterback, save the season, if you will. There's another term that usually goes with that phrase, but yeah, I don't think that Bridgewater would necessarily save their season, but then again, you never know. I mean, Teddy's Teddy. He can do it. It just depends on what Teddy you're going to get, and he's probably a little rusty right now. Hatter's house, nice to see you. No trades. Save it for next year. We are not winning a Super Bowl this year. So let me give you an alternative response to that. Do you want to compete at a higher level this year? and be ready for next year. And if you find some of the right players with the right amount of contract left, it makes sense, in my opinion. Wilson says, Nick P, if Minnesota expects to save their season, they will need Hunter. That's a good take right there. I like that. Ryan says, well, then he's reliable. Then I'll take it. Will doing a super job. Hey, thanks, Mike P. Appreciate that. Like your picture there from Lions Stadium corner. Love it. That's a good question. How many of y'all have season tickets? How many games have you guys gone to? And if you guys stick around with this channel, come next season, we have like 12 season tickets in our group. And next season, we're going to try to add more. But we gave away a lot of training camp tickets. We just can't go to every single one. But we had a lot of training camp tickets. So if you stick around and you're here next season, we'll be giving you guys, access to things. We put it up. We do some contests. We have fun with it. Training camp was insane this season, like packed house. And I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't. Lions did a good job. I just wish they would have moved the trash cans from away from the entry because it stunk a few days. Really bad. All right, Nick P says, I'd rather have a big body wide receiver than another slot guy. Yeah, I think I agree with that too. I wouldn't be mad with Hunter Renfrow, but we do need a big body. Someone that can go up and get the ball, says Nick P. Get Jerry Jeudy. What's everybody's opinion on Jerry Jeudy? Thanks, Destination Outdoors, for jumping in. Appreciate it. Nick P says, at Wilson, Hunter is a piece, but they have to give a little to get something in return. Makes sense. All right, I'm going to have to skip down this a little bit. Why is everyone clutching their pearls over the Raiders, says Black Lion. I don't understand that one. Enlighten me. I want us to get Burns from Carolina. So, Jalel, I can't read your name. I apologize. So here's the deal. According to sources, Brian Burns is not going to be moved. And that's coming out of Carolina's camp, that Carolina's not going to move him. They're not even willing to take any offers, which sucks because, he's another big piece that we could have used. I'm not sure he's the right piece. Rick K says, play Houston and rotate him with Charles Harris or Romeo Okwara. I'd love to see Houston get back from all, angles of his injury and his timetable to get back. It's probably not going to be at least until after week 10. We haven't even heard him get back to the practice field yet. He's got some time still in front of him. All right. Nick P says, I'm a Bucs season ticket holder, but ripped my Lions jersey at the game. So Nick P, you must be down in the Tampa area. So do you rep both teams? How does that work? I don't know your name, buddy. Judy has an attitude problem. Yeah, I don't think that Brad Holmes is going to bring in attitude problems. I really don't. We'll see. We'll see. All right, so who are we going to take if we're talking receiver? That's the question. And to me, the 3 or 4 biggest names, I already said them once. You've got Hunter Renfrow, Mike Evans, Cortland Sutton, Marquise Brown. I'm in the boat of Marquise Brown. He's had mixed results in Arizona. He's been their number one wideout, but the production has been very inconsistent this season. But Kyler Murray has also been very inconsistent. And between him and Josh Dobbs, I don't see how Hollywood could really be that successful. Brown is unsigned for his 5th season after being traded from Baltimore last offseason. And if I'm understanding that means that he's a half a year rental and you're going to have to sign him to a contract. So let's take a look at Marquise Brown's contract here. All right. Let's see here. Yeah, so he's only signed through this season. He's making about 13.5 million per season. So to bring Marquise Brown in, if you were to put him on a 2 or 3 year deal, he's probably going to cost north of 13 a season. He's 26 years old, so he's still young. But then again, Brad Holmes, man, they know how to work their magic, bringing in these guys. And, whether it's a 1 year prove it deal that seems to be very attractive, very cap friendly. I mean, they did it with CJ Gardner. They did it with Emmanuel Mosley. They did it with DJ Chark. If anybody can get it done, I feel it's Brad Holmes' camp. But I don't know if you want to bring him in just for a year, unless they're going to go out and target somebody next draft. And next week, when we do the pre-draft, kind of let's talk about contracts. Let's talk about the expiring deals. Who do we have on the roster now? What are we looking for next year? Kind of bye-week filler show, if you will. I'm going to talk a little bit about roster roulette. And roster roulette is a term that I kind of made up this year on how these GMs look at their rosters and their contracts and what they have left for draft capital in each season, and kind of how each piece, as you put it on a sliding scale or you put it on a rotation, if you will, it makes sense as to when GMs will go and pull the trigger on, getting somebody in the draft. It's just something that I kind of came up with, and we're trying to put it to the test, and we're trying to see if it's going to be have any sort of accuracy to it as the next couple of seasons develop. We'll see how it goes. It's an interesting conversation, at least. All right. Rick K says something to keep in mind, period. We only have 2 legit corners signed past next year. Good point, Rick. Sutton and Chase Lucas, 4 wide receivers and 3 DTs. So what I was just talking about is perfect to go along with what Rick is saying here. This exact question is exactly what I was worried about in the very beginning of this season. Is what are the Lions going to do now that these guys are not healthy, right? You're not bringing back Emmanuel Mosley. I assumed that the idea was bring them in on a rental. Let's see how well they play in 2023. And if they play well, we'll extend them, right? Well, you're not doing that with Mosley. I don't think you're going to bring back Brad Holmes. Better not. I don't think that you're going to bring back another guy that just had 2 ACLs back to back. And I'm not saying anything bad against Mosley. That would just be a bad business decision. CJ Gardner-Johnson, he may get another 1 year deal. He didn't really have a great season so far because he got hurt. So what team is going to go out and really jump up to grab him for, a multi-year deal worth a lot of money? I would say next to none. But then again, the Lions and CJ Gardner seem to like each other. Somebody tell me, what's up with CJ Gardner changing his name to CD Deuce? Where did that come from? Whatever, it's his name. It just seemed kind of weird. But I wouldn't mind seeing CJ Gardner back in the saddle next season for a similar contract. Give him another shot and see what he does. He was, what the lifeblood of this defensive backfield all season. And he still is, even though he's not in the game. He's still a big part of what they're doing. But I feel you. We definitely need to get some corners. I was really surprised that we didn't take more of an opportunity this past draft, especially with the way things have kind of shaped out with some of these players. I would have loved to have seen, some more corners brought in. Let me get caught up with the chat here. I'm going to skip all the way to the bottom, I promise. I'm not skipping you on purpose. I'm just one man, and there's a lot of chats in here. It's hard to get to them all. All right. So Jordan Watley says, please, can we get Fuller and Allen? So the big news for today that I started with earlier is, according to Washington's camp, they are no longer interested in trading Allen. It doesn't mean it won't happen. It just means that they're really not wanting to take any offers. They are really trying to move off of Montez Sweat and Chase Young. And they weren't even going to do that if they won today's game. Or sources speculate they weren't going to do that if they lost today's game or if they won today's game. They lost, so Sweat and Young and Fuller are on the block. We'll see what happens. Don't forget, we have the best slot corner in the NFL, Brian Branch. We definitely do. And he's also a safety. He can play either way. And he plays more of the nickel right now, which he's been beautiful at. So we do have some pieces to build on, right? We have Brian Branch and Sutton for next season. Chase Lucas is the only, was he a 5th round pick, I think, from a couple of seasons ago. Stephen Gilmore, we have him. I believe he's signed past this season. He should be. But we don't have many top tier corners coming in for 2024. At least we don't have a viable number 2, in my opinion. Yeah, it is crazy. I agree with you, Jordan, because he does want out of there. But that's the funny thing about the NFL and contracts. Just because you want something as a player doesn't mean you're going to get it. But it also doesn't mean that he won't hold out next season. You know, I don't know why Washington would want to keep a guy that's unhappy. To me, that just doesn't, especially if you can get a decent amount of draft capital back. Look, if he's not happy, is he going to play well? Probably not. You don't want, someone like that in your locker room that's just disgruntled. It doesn't work well. Employee mental health is extremely critical if you're trying to run a successful business. And if your employees are unhappy, if they're mentally not in it, they're not going to be successful for you. And I think that holds true to any business, whether it's football or, McDonald's, for all I care. If they're not happy, they're not going to care, about making burgers right, I guess. All right, so let me get back to some of this stuff in the show here. Still waiting on a call. If you guys want to call and talk and post, your ideas, your thoughts, I'll give you the number again. It's 313-312-0348. Again, that's 313-312-0348. I'm going to put it down in the chat again. And if you guys would like to write about the Detroit Lions, we definitely have space for you on rockdownpodcastnetwork.com. And shoot us an email at info@rockdownpodcastnetwork.com or call us at the number I just put in the comments. We can chat about it. All right, so my big takeaways for today. If I'm looking at this Lions roster, which I'm going to pull that up right now, and I promise I will post that link to the whole Myles Garrett thing. I'll probably get it when I'm done. Just come back and check the comments, and it'll be there. I'm not going to be able to find it right offhand because I didn't save it. All right, so if we're looking at the depth chart right now, wide receiver, you've got Khalif Raymond, Amon-Ra, Antoine Green, Josh Reynolds, Jamison Williams. So you have 5. And this doesn't include anybody on practice squad. I'm not really worried about anybody that's on the practice squad at this point. I'm looking for bona fide starters, guys that can come in each week and produce. I'm not completely sold on Jamison Williams giving us a lot of production this season. My full opinion will come out after week 12. I think that we at least owe him that. And that was when he was suspended, for the first 6 games and got to come back too early. My thought was I at least want to give him till week 12 to see what he could do. Well, now he's getting a couple extra games on top of that. So he'll have, 7-8 games in. And let's see where he's at. The biggest thing that Jared Goff said the other day on 97.1 was he missed a lot of time. Not only with training camp last season, but practices, and this season, the suspension, and then getting hurt during preseason, missed a lot of reps. So you miss that much time with your quarterback, the chemistry isn't going to be there. My biggest concern is that when I'm seeing him look over one shoulder and then looking over the next shoulder, that's just not normal. Look, if it's a broken play, if you're trying to adjust to a ball or adjust to a route, that's one thing. But it seems to be a consistent thing that we keep seeing week in and week out. That for whatever reason, he's looking both directions. And to me, that tells me he doesn't know what shoulder the ball is supposed to be coming over. And the reason why I say that is, whether you know this or not, 9 times out of 10, the plays are designed to come to left side or right side, this shoulder, inside shoulder, outside shoulder. So they know where the ball is supposed to be coming. Does it always work out that way? No. But these quarterbacks are pinpoint accurate, whether you want to believe it or not. They are. And if you tell them to hit this hash mark at this yard mark, they can, mostly all of them can do it, especially the starters in the NFL. Does it mean that it happens every play when you're under pressure and it's during a game? No. But the reason why I'm saying all this is because Jameson needs to know where this ball is going to be. And I just feel like he doesn't. I've seen him stop on a pass because he's hearing footsteps coming right up towards him. A couple of times over the middle, on the outside. I'm not saying that every ball Goff has thrown has been absolutely perfect, because there's been a couple of questionable passes. But look, if only 2 balls were questionable, out of the 20 or whatever, Jameson has seen, there still needs to be more production. So I'm a little worried about where he's at mentally and his preparation. I just think it's an issue. So for me, I think I would like to see the Lions find somebody that can step in. Look, if Goff doesn't have a problem getting the ball to Amon-Ra or Reynolds or Khalif Raymond, I don't think he has a problem getting the ball to Jameson. I just think that they're off. Their chemistry's not there, and Jameson's struggling a little bit. He just needs a really good breakout game. Man, if he could just get a really good breakout game, his confidence would go through the roof. And we've spoken to this many times, that confidence breeds excellence, right? The more confidence you have week in and week out, the better you're going to play. And we've seen it with our defense this season. They got big time confidence after that Falcons game, and they went on a tear. So they lost some confidence versus the Ravens. Now they have to get the confidence back tomorrow night. So confidence breeds excellence in this league. All right. Nick P says, JMO, I would like to see on more crossing routes underneath. Everything seems deep for him, and some slants. Yeah, I'd like to see it too. It's just, for some reason, the passes that have gone that way on some of those deep crosses, they're not connected on. But you're right. Everything seems deep to JMO. And maybe this was just a theory, and I don't want to be right on this. And I'll have to go back and watch some more Bama tape, but I feel like that's all JMO did in college, was deep balls. I don't think he had enough reps on the short, intermediate, quick slant, and that's why he's struggling. That he was more of a deep ball, a lob ball, if you will, a lofted ball catcher, not a hot ball catcher, not something coming in at you at 60 miles an hour. I may be wrong on this take, but I'll go back and look at some more tape. But I really do think that he was a deep ball guy. He did catch some stuff though, some sideline passes that he took the distance. All right, Bobo says, dude is working through it. He's basically a rookie that has had less than half the reps anyone has. Yep, that's true. If he's busy, you'll know after, if he's a bust, you'll know after week 19. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the sentiment, right? I wanted to give him till week 12 to see what he's got. After the season, I think everyone's going to have an assessment on him no matter what. And I hope that he gets through it. I really do. We really need him to step up. Ludell Wesley says Bryce Young to Jared Goff is a bit different in ball placement. Yeah, I'd say so. But you look at Bryce right now, man. He's not playing well at all. Both those guys are struggling. Jordan Wally says not enough routes where he's number one option on the decision tree, in his opinion. Yeah, that's true. And I think that you've got to earn it, right? And I think that's the whole thing behind this Detroit Lions coaching tree is it doesn't matter where you drafted. It doesn't matter if we traded for you. It doesn't matter how much money you make. You need to earn your reps and earn your stripes. And they said it all off season long again this season. Sam Laporta earned his stripes. That's why he is the first or second option right now. Jack Campbell didn't really earn his stripes so much just yet. He's in, he's getting playing time, but he's not the first guy in. Amon-Ra's earned his stripes. He wasn't the first guy either when he was first brought in. But he caught 202 balls every single day after practice. And I'll make one more comment on Jameson, and then I'm going to walk away from it. He said that he only caught 100 balls while he was suspended every day. That's it. And I guess it triggered me for a minute because I said to myself, wait a second. Amon-Ra leading this team. He's going to practice every day. And he's catching 202 balls after practice every day. Jameson Williams is suspended, not with the team. He's basically going out in the backyard, queuing up 100 balls and calling it a day. Kind of bothered me. I thought maybe he would want to catch 302 balls. I mean, you're missing out on practice too. So just a thought. I'll throw it out there. I just didn't know. I didn't get that his head was in it, right? That he really wanted to be great. There's a difference between somebody that wants to be great and beat everybody, crush the competition, and somebody that thinks they're great, has done some great things, but maybe doesn't have all the tools or assets yet. Amon-Ra was drafted way too late in the draft, and we know that now. But he knew that then, and he made a list, and every day he wants to be better than every single person on that list. Who does JMO want to be better than? Because right now, he has to be better than Amon-Ra to earn those first reps. He has to be better than Reynolds, Laporta, Raymond, everybody to get those reps. And he's not going to get them until he's able to prove that he's the best. Let's just hope he gets there. All right. Nick says the Achilles injury has now been confirmed for Cousins. That sucks, man. Too many Achilles injuries in this league. A lot this year. I think we've had more than our normal. And I don't know if it's so much the turf versus grass because we've seen them on both, right? Rodgers was on grass. I don't know. I don't think I'm going to go down that rabbit hole. I don't have enough information on, the turf being that much different or how it feels or what happens to your feet. Do they really get stuck and your body's trying to go one direction and your feet are going another? I don't know. All right, so back to the depth chart. I do think that the Lions need to find a receiver. And I'm saying that because, look, we're one injury away from not having a number one. And, Josh Reynolds, he's stepped up when we needed him to. But I would love to see a bona fide number two that would probably be a number three in our offense right now. Because I don't think that they're going to take targets away from Reynolds. They're definitely not going to take targets away from Laporta. And we know that Amon-Ra is going to get as many as they can give him. So if we were to bring in somebody like a Marquise Brown, he would be a very solid number two. And he actually plays in a number two role a lot better. The word on Hollywood is, the mixed results in Arizona. He's been there number one, but he's had very, sluggish production, inconsistency. He is a speedy big play threat who works best as a complementary number two. That's the words on Marquise Brown. So I would love to see somebody like a Marquise Brown brought in. I'm not big on Mike Evans. I'm okay with Hunter Renfrow, but it doesn't solve the immediate need. Like a few of you have said that, we need more of a bigger body guy, someone that can go up and contest catches. Obviously, someone that can be used in the red zone. So that's where I'm at on that. We need to bring in a receiver. But if I were to have a choice, we need to bring in a defensive tackle or a defensive end first, cornerback second, receiver third. And I would love to know from you guys in the comments, what makes the most sense to you? If you could pick one, just one, that the Lions will bring in this season, who's it going to be? Josh Prince says, bring Chase Young to Detroit. 100%. 9 Drink says, bring in Allen. Toby Castle says, Max is worth the money if you can get 2 to 4 Super Bowls. Talk about Mad Max Crosby. There was a statement that I read earlier. Let me go back to it. It was about the Raiders. And I want to say that, well, number one, we know the Broncos aren't going to trade Patrick Surtain. But I want to say that Max Crosby is not on the trading block. Nine Drinks also likes Fuller. I like Fuller. I definitely like Fuller. Tony Haven says he's also patient on JMO. He needs the reps. I agree, man. Ooh, Josh Prince says bring in Aaron Donald. That's big money. That's big time money. You're talking $30 million a year. I don't know that we could do that. We could get 2 guys, 3 guys for that price. I like the idea of bringing in an interior pass rush like that. I just don't like the idea of the money. Move Iffy back to cornerback. Iffy had a heck of a game his first game this season. And it was probably the best game I've seen Iffy play all career. I'm back on the Iffy train too. I don't know about cornerback. I don't know if he has a lateral agility, the speed right now. I kind of like to leave him where he is and see, if we can't bring somebody else in. It's good that we got Jacobs back tomorrow. And I know that's funny. It's kind of like an oxymoron because we were all over Jacobs in the beginning of the season. All right, Tony Haven says he will take Sweat. He would be a nice addition for us. So if you like Sweat, why do you like him over Young? And if you had the choice between the two, Young or Sweat, are you still going with Sweat? If they were the same money, second round pick, same money, Young or Sweat? That's the question. Eric Anderson says, yup, Bama scheme, crossing routes. Was that to the earlier statement on JMO not getting enough crossing routes? Being too much of a deep ball guy? We should do the same deal for Donald. The second round pick? Yeah, I don't think that'll happen. There was a statement that was made by, I think it was the Rams. Wonder if I saved that one. But the Rams were trying to get rid of some players, and they were even willing to pay. Let me go back and find that. I know it's not Donald. All right, while I'm looking this up, we'll recap a few things. What do you guys think about Darnell Mooney from the Bears? Looks like there might be some questions about his chemistry with Justin Fields. Bit shaky. He's kind of faded as a target. I mean, they already got rid of Chase Claypool. Bears season's trash. Again, I don't know if there'd be any interdivisional trades, but he could be one. And he's a bigger body guy. Where is it? All right, I'm going to try to find this link one more time because it had a lot of good information in it. All right. What do we got for scores going on right now? Is there any big games going on that we should be worried about? I don't have anything on for some reason. I've got volleyball on for some reason. I'm not real sure why. Oh, come on. I don't know why I can't find it. All right, I'm going to go back to the depth chart. So my other big concern for the Lions outside of receiver and defensive tackle is going to be the offensive line. And I don't think I really need to say a whole lot on this other than, I mean, look, we've got Taylor Decker, Jonah Jackson, Frank Ragnow, Graham Glasgow, Penny Sewell when they're all healthy. The problem is Jonah Jackson's been out for 2 weeks in a row. Frank Ragnow's battling a foot injury. And I said it in the beginning of the season during the pre-draft show that I was very taken aback by the fact that Brad didn't bring in another center/guard. I was high on a couple of guys. I want to say one of them was Joe Tippmann, who could play both. And there's a couple other guys that I felt the Lions would have targeted had they not traded a lot of their picks away and done a lot of the moves that they did. There could have been an opportunity for, I guess, an opportunity to bring someone in to one, be a backup and be ready to go, at right guard and then slide over to center, at some point. Look, I don't think Frank Ragnow is going to play much longer. I really don't. I don't know how much longer he's going to be, able to battle this plantar plate issue. And like we're seeing, I mean, just through the ebbs and the flows of the season and what it takes to, have a physically able body in the NFL, it takes a lot out of these guys. And week in and week out, we're seeing more guys go down. And even the slightest injury to Ragnow's foot can take him out of the game. Can take him out of the NFL. I mean, if that's the biggest thing that we don't know. If he injures it again like he did before, that could be it because it's not surgically repairable. And what I don't know, and maybe one of you guys know more than I do, is with it not being surgically repairable, does that mean that he's just playing on something that, I guess for lack of a medical term, is just broken every day? I mean, you can't do anything with it. You can't fix it. You can't make it better. You just got to deal with it. And I think the issue is he doesn't have any cartilage at all in that plantar plate. So when I look at this depth chart, our backups, as I mentioned earlier, you've got Dan Skipper. Look, he's been in the league a long time, but I think we all know what we get out of Dan Skipper, and that's not much. Coyote Awosika. I know the Lions coaching staff likes him, but to me, he's just not producing a lot for us when he has been in, especially during preseason. I mean, the entire backups for this offensive line let up a ton of pressures. And Teddy Bridgewater was running around like a chicken with his head cut off. Halapoulivaati Vaitai, this is his last season. They restructured, renegotiated his deal because he had 2 seasons left, this year and next year, and they pretty much cut it in half, and he's done this season. And we're seeing why. I mean, he had a major back injury, back surgery, and he can't stay healthy. Graham Glasgow was by far the best offseason acquisition that the Lions really did, because he's stepped in and he's played well for what he's able to deal with. He's doing it well. Colby Swordsdahl, 5th round pick from William and Mary. Look, he's young, he's raw. He just doesn't have the experience yet. He will be decent, but he's more of a tackle than he is a guard. So what does that boil down to? I mean, who's even available? It is so hard to find offensive tackles or even any offensive line help around this time of the year. It's a little bit easier in the off season when you have expiring contracts. We really don't need a tackle, but I guess if I look at it from this perspective, you can upgrade behind Taylor Decker and or Penei Sewell by taking Garrett Bowles, offensive tackle from the Broncos. He went from being somebody that was on the bust watch to now he's a very solid edge protector and run blocker. He's kind of their version of an attractive first round asset at the position, where it's rare to really, like I said, really, really hard to find veteran help in the market. He could definitely be an upgrade for what we need. And then if, like I was saying, if you really look at it, you bring in a tackle that solidifies the most important position, which is left tackle and right tackle. I mean, you've got to keep Goff. You got to keep him clean from the edge on both sides, especially his blind spot. So you bring in Bowles, and then that way Graham Glasgow can jump in and play the guard position the rest of the season as needed and be ready to fill in for Frank Ragnow. I think that would be a better option than bringing in a guard. Bring in a tackle, because the tackle position is much harder to learn. And you just don't know what you're getting, when you get a tackle in the draft right away. Penei Sewell was an incredible pickup. All right, so Justin G, you look like a new name. Been watching a few videos of yours. First time tuning in live. I feel like we are in a weird spot since we have so many needs due to injuries right now. Yeah, I could agree with that. It's hard to address everything at the deadline. 100% spot on. It is. It's really hard. And that's why we're in this funny position. Hold on. Basically have about $7 million in cap space, but we have plenty of cap next season. So I'm not really worried about the contracts as much as I am worried about the draft capital. We got the draft next season in Detroit. Sorry about that. I don't want to see, we're going to walk into the draft and not have any picks. That would suck. I mean, we've been waiting to have a draft or something like that. I mean, we had the Super Bowl long time ago, 16, 17 years ago or something crazy like that. But we've been waiting to see, something happen in Detroit. And now we finally have something. I don't want to walk in and not have picks. Yeah, so Steve, the toe versus the calf. Yeah, the injury right now is the calf. He also has the toe issue. But yeah, it's the calf problem that he's having right now during the week as far as what's keeping him out of practice. What I'm referring to, hold on one sec. You guys probably don't know this all yet, but I had cancer surgery removal in the spring. So my throat will hurt. So at some point throughout these long conversations. So I have to just excuse myself for just a second. Sometimes I have a hard time swallowing. You'll see that. I got to get something to drink. So anyway, what I was saying about his plantar issue is there's a plate underneath your foot. I don't know how to do that. It's a plate underneath your foot, and apparently all of the cartilage is gone. So it's like bone on bone. And I believe he did fracture it or something last season or the season before. And he keeps having an issue with that. Then the toe happened after that. And then now the calf. So what I'm saying about his future is if he does injure that plantar plate again, he may be done. And I guess from a business perspective, what I was thinking is why wouldn't the Lions have brought in another center? Center's a very tough position. So you bring in one that you can groom that can also play guard. That's all I was saying there, buddy. I appreciate your update too. What would it cost to get Mike Evans? That's a good question. What's he worth? Isn't he old by now? And by old, I mean, he's always going to be younger than me, but old by football terms. Let's see where he's at. So he is 30. He is making base salary of $13 million this season. Overall cap number is almost $24 million. So my simple answer without breaking down his entire contract is too much. Way too much. I couldn't see him spending $24 million on Mike Evans. No way. I wouldn't do it. I mean, he's solid at what he does. I mean, I just don't see the Bucs moving off of him right now, especially with the way Baker's actually having a good season. Chris Mason, Logan Sternberg. I think Logan might be on the practice squad. I can't remember. I didn't pull up the practice squad when I was going over the depth chart. But again, I'm not worried about anyone on the practice squad because there really hasn't been anybody on it that is going to be able to step in and be like a number one or even a number two. All right, so on the practice squad, for offensive line, you've got Connor Galvin. Is this right? This isn't right. This can't be right. Detroit Lions. Yeah. All right. Yeah, it's right. You've got Connor Galvin. Michael Niesi. Don't even know who that guy is. Must be a UDFA. Max Percher. So we have zero depth on the practice squad. I mean, these guys are nobodies. They're not going to help us. And I guess I'm stingy when it comes to the trenches. And maybe that's probably why I could make a bad GM is I'm stingy, meaning I want my backups to be pretty darn good backups. At least, two of your backups, starting quality backups that you've got on a pretty decent deal. One guard and one tackle, as a backup that are darn near number ones, ready to fill in, when these guys retire or moved on or you trade them or you cut them, whatever. And you just keep filling it in, roster roulette, So when I get into the roster roulette conversation next week, this is the basic terminology. Let's say you draft an offensive tackle in 2024, first round. So you've got him for 5 seasons with, the 5th year option, right? And you have 2 franchise tags or even more, I think now, but at least 2. So you could string him out for 7 seasons if you really wanted to. But when I look at the contract, and let's call it 5. So the 5th year option on an offensive tackle is pretty expensive, but it's worth it usually. By year 3, you're probably going to want to bring in another first round, second round offensive tackle. Definitely by year 4, you're going to bring in a first round or a second round offensive tackle. And the reason for that is you bring him in, he may work out. The first guy you bring in at 24 may work out, maybe, really good. Let's say it's Penei Sewell. Well, you know that you're going to probably retain Penei Sewell. Really not much for any injury history. Played pretty clean. One of the best tackles in the game. You're going to retain him. But if it was the other side, then you're going to want to replace that person if he's going to cost too much money, right? And you're just not fully confident. Well, why would you just want to go out and draft someone and replace that guy all in the same season? Why wouldn't you want to bring somebody in to make your backup and allow them to, quote unquote, learn for a season? And typically offensive tackles are not positions where they come in and learn like a quarterback, but it's a depth piece. Maybe it's a late first rounder, second rounder that you can develop. Somebody that does need, maybe a little bit of time, not much, but it's more about having a backup for a backup, right? You want somebody behind your starter that you can slide in and not skip a beat, that you can trade, cut, whatever, contract expires, and you can slide in and not skip a beat. So the way roster roulette works is you've got a definite strategy of 2024, I draft a tackle. 2028, I draft a tackle. 2024, I draft a, defensive edge. 2028, I draft a defensive edge. So you're constantly cycling them in. And the other way to think about it is that way you never have to pay that max contract. Now, you may love the guy like Penei Sewell, like I said, but he's going to cost you a lot of money. So now if you're thinking, okay, well, we're going to get rid of Penei, and this is all hypothetical. I'm going to get rid of Penei, and so we're going to bring in the guy that we drafted, last season. We're going to put Penei up for sale. We're going to get a bunch of draft capital back. You inject that draft capital into, your drafting system with roster roulette. You're constantly exchanging guys on the offense and defense without having to pay the max contract, bringing in draft capital every 4 or 5 seasons. And you can keep your cap light. And that way, come trade deadline, if teams are willing to deal players, you can now go out and spend 30, 40, $50 million and go run for a Super Bowl for 2 seasons. So when I look at roster roulette and how to balance a roster, that's how I would do it. Again, it's something that I'm just putting together, and I'm really trying to identify how to do it and what makes sense, put it to the test. And I don't know if these guys do that. I don't know if these GMs look at it that way when they sit down with the financial guys and say, hey, look, in 4 seasons, we need to do X, Y, and Z because we don't want to pay this max contract. We want to bring in another guy that's half as much money, and we're going to move on from that position, and we're going to just continue to grow. And that way, when you finally get a really good core of depth and starters, that's when you attack the offseason and the trade deadline to make a run. That's what the Rams did. And I don't want to say they did it completely like that. What I'm saying is, they brought in Jalen Ramsey and Von Miller and everybody else. They made a run, and they knew that they were at the right point to do it. They had the right quarterback in. Not saying that Jared Goff couldn't have done it, but they had Matt Stafford who was playing lights out. Then they had the right pieces. They went out and grabbed the right ones at the right time. So that's what you're building up to. You're building up to going out and drafting the right guys in the beginning. And then that brings you to a point where you can go out and buy guys when you want to for any price that makes sense to go make a run. And I think that's where the Lions are right now. They're in a position right now where they are so close to having the right depth that they are going to have an opportunity to go out and buy the guys that they want when they want them. I feel like they're a half a season ahead of schedule. I really do. I thought that the Lions would be more competitive next year, but they're there. They just need some more depth. So I think one more draft and the Lions are there for sure. So if Brad stays put, it wouldn't surprise me. But I think he's definitely going to be a player next year. But like a lot of guys have said that are in this space and talking Detroit Lions is, man, we are so close, right? Like it's right there. And we haven't been this excited in a long time. Don't waste, like Line Syndicate says, don't squander this opportunity. It's an opportunity to, put trust back in the fan base and the city. And I think it's time. All right. That's really all I had to say. I just wanted to talk about a few options, and I'm going to recap what I said in the beginning for some of the people that just jumped in. And that's this. Here are the 10 things that I found from sources on the internet and some of the insider sources throughout the league. And that was prior to today's games. Number one, the Broncos are not open to trading Patrick Surtain. They are willing to accept offers on Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton and linebacker Josie Jewell. The Broncos, however, are not selling cheaply. They are looking for maximum deals on their guys. The Eagles want to make another move. Even after adding Kevin Byard, they are looking at adding a linebacker. Baltimore Ravens are looking to add a running back. The Browns are looking to add a receiver. Buffalo Bills are looking for a cornerback. Washington Commanders are listening to offers on Chase Young and Montez Sweat. It's been speculated and rumored that they want a second-round pick in return for both. That means a second for Chase and a second for Montez. They are not willing to deal Jonathan Allen. They're not even going to take any more offers. They're not going to entertain it. But that was prior to them losing today. And the rumor was if they won today, they were going to back away from the trade deadline and possibly become buyers versus sellers. But they lost. So they're back to being sellers. The Raiders, Devontae Adams and Saquon Barkley out of the Giants are not getting moved. They are off the trading block. The Panthers are not shopping Brian Burns. So for all of us that wanted, Brian Burns or Brian Burns-esque type player to come in, doesn't sound like he's coming. DeAndre Hopkins and Derrick Henry are staying in Tennessee. They are not being moved. And again, these are all rumors speculated by insiders around the league. And the Chiefs, the Bengals, the Rams, the Falcons, and the Texans appear to be standing down. They are not going to be active in this trade deadline. The 49ers are looking to add a few pieces like an edge rusher and a cornerback. So I wouldn't be surprised if Montez Sweat or Chase Young end up in San Francisco, if one of them does. I wouldn't be surprised if they're trying to work out the same deal for the Kendall Fuller in a Montez Sweat or a Chase Young package deal, like we hope the Lions do. The Jets aren't getting many calls on Carl Lawson or Dalvin Cook. I could see Dalvin Cook probably ending up with Baltimore. I could see that happening. The Cardinals, they do want Marquise Brown to be part of their future despite getting calls from interested teams. They are saying that they're expecting him to stay in Arizona. But that's just one team that I don't feel is ready to keep everybody right now. All right, I know I've kind of let the chat go a little bit here. You guys are sending in so many, it's incredible, and I love it. When I get my partner back on, or when I get some additional help here with the producer, we should have a producer coming in soon that will be able to help us manage the chat a little bit better. The nice part is you guys get to communicate with yourselves too, and you can carry on conversations within the chat, and I think that's awesome because I've been seeing it going on here today. Let me remind everybody, like I said earlier, this channel is 100% sponsored and supported by all of you that are watching, all of you that tune in on your own free time to watch a video or listen to a live show. And I can't thank you enough. You guys have done an excellent job for us over the last week and a half. You've gotten us to a point where we didn't think we were going to get to for a long time, and we did it. So thank you. and we're going to do something for everybody. We're going to do a little contest. And when you come into the chat and you guys fill it up like you're doing today, that gives us an opportunity to pick a random name and do something nice for it and give something away, live. If you followed us in this past off season, you'll know that we gave over 20 tickets away to training camp, jerseys, grab bags, grill covers, you name it. And I think what I'm going to do right now is next week, if you guys want to tune in for what's going to be this roster roulette kind of pre-draft, let's see what the Lions need show. I think I'm going to give away 10 grill covers. It's a winter time. You need to cover your grill. So what's a better time than to do it now? And I've got all different sizes available. And so I think we'll call one of the sponsors and we'll see if we'll get that done. So I'm pretty sure it'll happen. All right. So I don't really have much more today. I just wanted to get in to throw out a few names and see what was going to happen with these 1 p.m. games and who was going to be sitting. Look, people played today. I was wrong. I expected the Lions to make some decisions before 1 o'clock. But Washington flipped the script on everybody. They decided to go in and play the Eagles tough. And they put it on that team to make the decision for Washington if they were going to be sellers. And you guys see the result. Washington lost. They're going to be sellers. So throw it in the comments one more time and let us know. Who do you want? What are the most important options for this Detroit Lions team? Look, if we've got to give up Will Harris, Charles Harris to bring in some guys, I'm all for it. Actually, I see a comment here. Chris Mason says Will Harris is too good for Detroit. He should demand to be traded. Yeah, he should. He definitely should. He really should demand it. Oh, man. Poor Will. Us Wills, you know how it goes. Look, he's been up and down. He's just too down too often. And that's not what this Lions team needs right now. They need consistency, not flashiness. He's a flashy player. There's another player that I'll say is a very flashy player, but I'm not going to beat that one to death anymore. Here's what I'm thinking. You trade Charles Harris and Will Harris. Maybe Washington will take them. They're cheap contracts. You trade them to Washington. You get Chase Young or Montez Sweat in return and Keandre Fuller. I think that would be a great deal. That way the Lions can give up some cap. They bring in some cap. They can then reorganize, their contracts. And I think that's exactly what the Lions need outside of finding some offensive line help. I just think it's a little bit too late for the Lions to find some offensive line help. I think we're stuck. I really do. Unless Brad, could find somebody somewhere else. There's really not much sitting in the free agency world. I mean, the guys that are sitting at home on their couch, there's not that much out there. There's a couple of big names, but they're really old. And they've been sitting for a while. I just don't see them being helpful. So, all right. Do me a favor one last time. If you guys have not subscribed, just take a look below. See if you guys have hit it. Please hit the bell if you want to hear when we go live or when we post videos. We appreciate you. We can't thank you guys enough for helping us out and being there today. We had over 160 join our show today, and we really appreciate it. I'm sure it's more than that. I mean, there's like 1,000 comments. You guys are incredible. Tune in next week. I'll post it again in the YouTube, so I'll schedule it. You guys can see it. In our description of this video, you have all of the different links to our Villain Squad store, where we have all sorts of Detroit theme that does support us. It is our store. I think I legally have to say that. We also have links to Amazon. So if there's things that you want to buy that are direct Detroit Lions stuff, and if you buy it through our link, it just helps us a little bit. Same price, same shipping times as you would buy it from anywhere else. And we'll keep throwing stuff up. and putting stuff out there. But the best way to support us, you don't even have to buy any of our awesome t-shirts. Just click subscribe and tune in. Send us some comments. That's all we ask. We love it. So you guys have been great. As always, go One Pride, go Detroit Lions. And until next week, or until we're back again, take care. We'll see you guys. Go Lions.